welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today, I'm going to introduce you to one of Hampton's groundbreakers. We've become famous for Hidden Figures and the book Margot Shetterly wrote that people didn't know about. And here's another figure that I think a lot of people don't know about. Mr. Irving Peddrew is the first African American who attended Virginia Tech. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you grew up in Hampton, and well, let's just get this out of the way first. Your mom, tell us what your mom did.
Well, she was one of the hidden figures, and my aunt was also a hidden figure.
So they were the mathematicians that helped, and it would have been that time frame maybe before the space, they helped beginning, a lot of people didn't read the book, only saw the movie. Helped really beginning during the war with flight research and flight trajectories, and then that moved on to the moon and the space. So there was a long time period there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Were you aware that they were groundbreakers at the time, or was it just accepted?
No, I wasn't aware. And it came as a shock to me later on when I learned that they were the first, and they were later on honored. And Margot Shetterly wrote very brilliantly about the movement.
So you had, you know, there weren't a whole lot of women in professional fields then. It wasn't just the African American women's group. There were white women who weren't, you know, you have to wear pearls, all the same things, a lot of the same things applied to them, except for the, you know, horrible segregation. But it's still, so you have educated, working, professional women models in your life. Your father did what?
My father was a bricklayer. He finished Hampton University, which was called Hampton Institute at that time, in the trade, as well as my uncle. Yeah. So
you grew up in a community of well-educated people. You lived in, I'm going to guess it was downtown, right? I know my neighbor told me, because you kind of grew up near him.
Right.
And have gone through Hampton Public Schools, which at that time would have been segregated Hampton Public Schools. You're a senior at Phenix. How are you making the decision about what you want to do next?
Well, I didn't give a heck of a lot of thought to it. I just thought that I was smart enough to take whatever I really wanted to do. And the father and I made a decision to go into engineering.
And so how many schools did you apply to, and what kinds of schools? Oh,
about 20 schools altogether, all over the U.S. And there was an instance when one of the class sponsors came up to me, and I don't know why, but approached me during my junior year, my senior year, and said she thought, or she had indicated that someone had told her that the white schools were beginning to accept black students.
Oh, interesting. Because probably the way they did it was to put out feelers to certain schools, certain guidance counselors, and were probably ready to handpick the people they wanted rather than open the doors.
I suspect that was true. And I applied to all of the white schools in Virginia. I didn't go outside of Virginia. But my sponsor, Ms. Hines, indicated that she knew that, or had heard that the white schools were beginning to accept black students.
So this is what year? I forgot to, let's put people back in
1953.
1953, okay.
So that's when I applied to all the schools, and the only school that gave me any mention or talked to me at all without rejecting me openly was Virginia Tech.
Now that is, though, not the only set of schools you applied to, because you probably knew the chances of those schools taking you seriously wasn't great. So you hedged your bets, and the other 10 or so schools you applied to were well outside the South.
Yeah, California and Michigan, Ohio, all of the major schools.
And what did they say? Did you get accepted by?
Oh yes, without failure.
Almost all of those?
The only one rejection was Dartmouth, and I think that was more for financial reasons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's also quite a competitive school.
Right.
But you got into Ohio, Michigan,
California,
Southern California? Or,
I was going to go to University of Southern California. And at that time, the state of Virginia was giving scholarships to students that were qualified, black students, who selected a curriculum that wasn't offered in the only Virginia land-grant college, which was Virginia State. So when I selected EE,
you had to have
electrical engineering.
Okay.
I had to take tests, but I was given a scholarship to go to any school that I wanted to go to outside of the state of Virginia.
Oh my God.
So I selected.
So this is a hard thing to put yourself back in that place. But so basically the state of Virginia said, we will pay to send you outside the state rather than a Virginia college that we're already spending state money on because those are white.
Rather than integrate, they would send me outside. That wasn't just me, it was any black
that was
student,
the policy.
Yeah, that qualified, so I took tests.
So the state would have paid you to go to USC or Michigan? Or,
yeah, they paid me to go to USC.
And then at some point, Virginia Tech said, they contacted you.
They contacted me and indicated that they would send 2 gentlemen down to interview me if I agreed to that, and I said yes. So the director of admissions and another gentleman came down and interviewed me in my home, in the living room of my home. And afterwards said that they would be in contact. Did not commit.
Indication either way.
No indication. So 2 weeks later, I got a telegram saying I'd been accepted.
How did that feel?
Well, it was interesting. I didn't have any feelings of a great situation for me. I thought being the first might be something I would be interested in because I was such a strong individual, I felt.
You would have to be. You really would have to be.
Yeah. Well, I was brought up that way. I was from strong parents and very interested in my welfare. So then it was a choice of whether to accept the scholarship and go to USC or to stay there and go to Virginia Tech, stay here. So I decided that I would go to Virginia Tech, ease the burden on my parents.
Yeah, because the scholarship sometimes only pays for the tuition part, not the room and board. It never covers the travel, and it's pretty darn expensive, especially back then, to fly back and forth. So there were a lot of other factors. And you were willing to be the first. I mean, that's hard.
Yeah, I guess I didn't imagine the full impact of being the first,
First and only. A lot of places, when they do open the doors a crack, take more than one person so that you've got a little bit of community or someone to talk to.
Sure.
So what was it like? You had to find your own place to live, right? They wouldn't let you live on campus.
Right. Well, the school had set up with a black family in Blacksburg. So that's what...
had to live off campus, couldn't eat in the cafeterias?
No. No, I was in the Corps Cadets because you had to be in the Corps Cadets at that time.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
I was on guard duty. We had to pull guard duty. And they marched all of us into the cafeteria to have lunch. And they served me. I ate. The next day, a memo was distributed all around campus that no longer no off-campus students could eat in the cafeteria.
Oh, that's the way they phrased it,
Yeah.
off-campus students. So how were you treated? And was it different in the Corps of Cadets or in your classes or as you walked across campus where, the other students didn't really know you?
Well, they have what they call a rat system for the freshman cadet corps members.
Mm-hmm.
You had to walk within 6 inches of the edge of the curb, and there were a number of things that you had to do for your entirety of your freshman year.
And so normally with the students, that binds them into a cohesive unit, some people say. But did that cohesive unit include you or not?
Well, as far as the campus was concerned, I didn't have any problem going into the other places, the student hall and some of the, let's see, places like the students, with Squires Hall it was called, and there was a bowling alley which I was able to go into, and there was like a soda shop in that building that I could go to. As long as I was on campus, there weren't too many places I couldn't go, but the cafeteria was the one that was off limits. But when I went off campus to go into town, I couldn't go with my buddies, the friends I had made, and to enjoy anything in town, the restaurants or any of the places. So I had to stay with the black friends that I'd made.
You had to completely change communities.
Right. Well, after leaving school.
And how did the students treat you in class? Was there, were some of them nice, but a lot of them ignored you? Was there actual meanness? I mean, a lot of the early people who integrated things were thrown at them. I mean,
No incidents like that at all.
That's...
Yeah, when I sat in class...
That's a low bar to set, but still,
No one got up to move when I sat down in class next to someone, and there was a loneliness, but it was not open, and no incidents. I wasn't called out of my name or anything like that. So.
So you stayed there for 3 years. Did they admit other African Americans during this time? I mean, did the isolation decrease at all? The
second year, they admitted 3 students from Booker T. Washington in Norfolk.
Okay.
And we all lived with the same family.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. That's at least, somebody to talk to go into town with.
But I was told in my sophomore year that I was called into the director of the admissions office, and he said, Irving, I want you to know why we accepted those 3 other students? And I said, I'm not sure. He said, well, because of the record that you made during your first year, your acceptance and your performance in your first year was the reason we accepted the 3 other students.
So they flat out told you were the test case and you passed the first year.
Right, I passed.
Passed the test.
Pretty
but
much.
Still, that's not opening the door very wide to admit 3 more.
No, it didn't. It didn't change anything, basically.
A campus that size.
Yeah, they went through the same thing that I went through, so that was... So
you stayed at Tech for 3 years. Yeah. And then tell me about the program that you left to do.
It was a program sponsored by the YWCA called Students in Vocation. And the Y had rented a frat house in Southern California at the University of Southern
So
California.
you finally made it to USC.
Yeah. So, and it was a 6 months, 6 weeks duration. And there were students we had students from all over the world. Let's see. We had a girl from France, a girl from Norway, a gentleman from Germany, plus all over the U.S. Quite a large contingency of students. And we shared experiences. They all found us jobs. And so I got a job as a draftsman with an aerospace company. And we went to different events around Southern California. It was very interesting. And it was pretty much what I thought it would be and why I had looked forward to going to the West Coast.
So what is the environment like there? How are you treated? What is, what does it feel like? How is it different than it was here in Virginia?
Well, I got to go to any restaurant, and you didn't have a separate section in the theaters to go. Everything was integrated.
And you'd never been able to live like that up until that point.
Right, absolutely not. Of course, I always stayed with my family, so I had that comfort zone.
Right, right. And Phenix, I've heard, Phenix High School is a very supportive place.
Right.
But still, that's not the same as real freedom.
Being a part of the overall.
So there was not a chance of you going back to Tech at that point, coming back to Virginia. You stayed. Once you got there.
Well, I thought about it, but I got talked out of it by the leaders in the Y. They took to me and thought that I had done enough and I had been exposed to enough and that I should stay out there and finish my education, where I had general acceptance. Now, there were areas in Southern California that were closed, such as certain areas to live, residential areas. You couldn't.
Okay.
I ran into that too, but generally it was an open society, So, but I enjoyed it. The beaches and
see, it's like being here, kind of. You've got the beach living. You've got a lot of similar advantages, but clearly a very different society.
Right, absolutely. So, and I'd gone to Santa Monica, and well, I was working in Santa Monica, where I was working with an aerospace firm. So, when the project was over, I found a place to stay, a rooming, boarding place, and with a black family. But later on, I got into the real. After getting out of the Army and going back to California, I found other places that I would like to stay and enjoyed the Southern California style of living.
So you did your tour in the Army.
Yeah.
You went back there. You weren't ready to come back to Virginia. What finally brought you back to Hampton?
When my mother developed an illness and was having a big operation on her kidneys, and it was life-threatening, so I decided to come back.
And how was Hampton different then, from roughly 52 to 82? So 30 years have gone by. Was it different?
Yeah, well, everything was open pretty much, No more colored section in the theaters, and no more having to eat in black-owned restaurants and stuff. So there was quite a difference, although there were little vestiges of...
That's what I was going to say. Was there still an undercurrent?
There was an undercurrent, and you recognize that. There are certain places that didn't really welcome you, and you could sense it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I avoided those places, but in general, it was pretty much open. But like I said, I had a terrible time finding a job, employment, with the level of my education.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
And you were in the aerospace industry. We clearly have aerospace here, but it wasn't, the employment wasn't as open
Right.
as you found in California. So what finally happened?
Well, Tech called me back and on the 50th anniversary, and decided to name a dorm after me and the first graduate.
How
So,
did that feel? I mean, I see you're wearing your Virginia Tech tie. You are a proud Hokie.
yeah.
But were you always a proud Hokie? Or
No.
was there a time when you were
Of
just,
course not.
boom, I'm out, man. I'm not looking back.
No, yeah, that's pretty much the way I felt when I left. I was angry and somewhat bitter, but all of that has changed.
So
you know.
they actually called you, wanted to celebrate that 50th anniversary, wanted you back, and named a dorm after you. That's a big step for a school that didn't exactly know if it wanted you.
Well, things had changed at Tech too, along with everywhere else, and it wasn't totally open then, but it was open enough for me to enjoy the campus. And
So you went back and were honored by Virginia Tech.
Right.
How did that feel?
it was quite a change from the way things were. The dorms were open, and there was no problem eating in the cafeteria and things like that. So.
And you looked around a student body that was way more diverse than the one you left, in terms of gender, and in terms of race and all kinds of other things.
Right, not as much as I thought it should be.
No, that part of Virginia does not. It's not
They're still looking to be more diverse and more inclusive. So, but and then after that happened, they decided to give me an honorary degree, which was
because you hadn't completed there.
Right.
And you brought it with you today.
Right,
so you're really, I think, able to look back at that time, and some of the hate is gone, maybe not all of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, your memories are still there, but to recognize what you changed. Those 3 students from Booker T wouldn't have been admitted had you not been an academic success.
That's what they told me. I believe it. They said that they were proud that with my performance and my general acceptance, because there were no incidents or anything negative on the campus, while I was there.
So they were also testing the other students to see if they could handle it to some extent, to make sure you'd be safe, because at a lot of places, those early students were not safe at all.
Right. The only thing that really troubled me, well, not the only thing, the biggest thing was that the biggest social event for a cadet on campus is a ring dance, which is at the end of your junior year. And they made such a stink about my going that I decided not to go. But I was ready to go, and my date was ready to go, so.
Okay, was your date white or African American?
African American. Okay. And she was in school in West Virginia, and we had talked about it, so. But some of my classmates put it out that the girls' schools locally would not allow their girls to attend if I attended, which we found out was a lie. But that was terrible.
It was an excuse that they picked up that would travel.
They fabricated this story that Longwood and Radford and the other girls' schools would not allow their girls to attend. But that wasn't true.
And I bet that's part of what capped off your decision not to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big factor.
Yeah, that crowned it off. That did it, But that was the major incident, negative incident while I was there. Of course, that has changed
Yeah.
considerably now, but that's the way it was while I was there.
So thank you, Mr. Peddrew.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. I hope that this is another one of the Hampton First stories that is no longer hidden, that we all understand and appreciate where we are today is from people who did the first, who withstood all of the exclusion and being ignored and being pushed aside and still stayed there and fought the good fight, maybe for the rest of us more than for yourself. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching.